They told me for years there was no money in podcasting. Well, they were all wrong.
And for me, high school was the worst time of my life. I was one of those kids who just had a very, very hard time in high school, where I lost my identity and I had to find a way to build it back. And when I hit bottom, it took me so long to build it back.
Yeah.
But once I did, it was just like, you look back and you go, that made me stronger. That made me better. And that's the hidden gem with tragedy. It led me to here. It led me to this podcast. It led me to APS. It led me to who I am. It led me to find my identity behind a microphone. And a vital piece your parents pass on to you. My mom is the strongest person I've ever met in my life. And her weaknesses are my weaknesses. Her strengths are my strengths. So she passed on that weakness, which turns into my strength.
Yeah.
And there's a way to face the darkness within. Sometimes the way you face that darkness is face to face. So sometimes I'll take a day where I just need to stare myself in the mirror. I need to just think and just be myself and just be in deep thought. And, sometimes that's where the best ideas come from, because that's when I decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, because I live in the ebbs and flows. I have my highest of highs and I still have my lows where I'm in this funk. And I'll text my girlfriend and just be like, listen, I'm in a funk right now. I'm upset. I'm mad. I don't know why. There's nothing I can do about it. And I have to wait for it to pass. Because again, emotions are temporary. There's nothing I can really do. I do things to try and cheer me up. I hang out with my friends. I play some video games. I watch Titanic, whatever. But it's still, Titanic's my favorite movie. It's hilarious. But it still just doesn't go away. So there's a way to face the darkness within. And sometimes that's just to sit down and wait.
Dude, if we are moving so fast and our thoughts are racing, number one, if we're moving so fast, we miss a lot of the scenery.
Yep.
Number two, if our thoughts are racing and super, super loud, how are we supposed to hear the next step? But if we sit down and shut the hell up for a little while, and when it's most uncomfortable, when you're feeling the saddest or the most angry or the most forlorn, that's the most important time to do it. But typically that's the time when people avoid it the most because it feels the most uncomfortable. But I'm going to tell you something, Will. Thank you for sharing your experience of high school. Because I have to tell you, after coaching over 900 people, some people are still caught back in high school and are too comfortable and have never changed from them. So they might have been comfortable.
Yeah, we all know those dumbasses who peaked in high school, please. I dipped in high school, all right? I dropped in high school and came back up.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I'm glad you asked because, again, with the theme of being uncomfortable, right? I'm in a position now as a business owner and as a man, I'm 26 years old, where I'm trying to tackle what makes me uncomfortable. It's okay, I'm a business owner. I need to learn sales. I hate sales. I hate selling people. I hate putting on this face of I might be not deceiving you, but I'm not being authentic, right? Sometimes a sales call, if I'm cold calling people, going on LinkedIn and messaging, hey, do you need my services, right? It's that's not me.
Sure.
Me is doing a podcast. So yeah, part of these podcasting is networking tool. It's definitely a networking tool. So it's a little more authentic, but the idea of tackling the uncomfortable was something that stuck out to me. And we talked about before the podcast, this little picture up here, American Minutes, was a podcast I had to discontinue for multiple reasons. So I thought, okay, I have a hole here. What's my next podcast venture? And I thought, I'm going to do a solo show. And I don't do solo shows. I was very stuck in my ways. As we said, men are stubborn. I was very stubborn saying, I am not going to do a solo show because I suck at them. I don't know what to say. I don't like the sound of my voice. And it's not something I'm good at. It's not my comfort zone. So then I thought, okay, let me do a solo show. And lo and behold, I'm calling it The Comfort Zone. And the irony is that I'm doing something that makes me super uncomfortable to make it comfortable, to become comfortable. And I'm talking about, it's a podcast all about me. It's me telling my shared experiences, some stories, some funny things, stuff about the business. It's essentially my Dear Diary as a podcast that eventually I'm going to turn to my autobiography.
Almost like a memoir on the air. Yep,
exactly.
Yep.
And so that was my planning. And it's super uncomfortable. I don't have a set schedule. I record when I feel like it. So yesterday I did something because I was having doubts of should I release these things. I've recorded 8 of them so far as recording this, and I haven't released any of them yet. So I'm thinking, do I release these? Because listen, these things are very personal to me. Like I mentioned my first episode, like, listen, like, high school, I hit bottom, and eventually I'm going to tell that story when I'm ready to tell that story. But I'm just not there yet. And one day I'll get there. But that's very personal to me. And, I saw this story about this woman on TikTok who like had a baby, and she put pictures of her babies behind a paywall, and people were just bashing her over. And this girl's 19, 20 years old. And people online are just bashing her and praising her. And she has 21 million TikTok followers. I'm like, okay, you have potentially hundreds of thousands of people praising you and at the same time bashing you over the head for doing something that was personal to you. What does that do to someone mentally? And it's like, can I handle that? Can I physically handle that? And do I want to open myself up to that? Because if someone's listening to this podcast, Talking with Tarashuk, or the Ambiguous Podcast Solution, they give me positive, negative feedback, I can turn that off. I can turn that off on my brain. I cannot read it. I don't care. Like it, hate it. It feeds the algorithm. Comments away. You hate on it, shit on it. You love it, praise it. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. But comfort zone, just the meaning of the podcast and doing something that's so uncomfortable and out of my comfort zone, that's very personal, that's hard. That's hard.
If it's personal, and I'm not taking away the discomfort of it, but if it's personal, that means it's more therapeutic.
Exactly.
I will say that. I'm not taking away that you can totally feel uncomfortable and vulnerable and scared and terrified, whatever it is. But if it's personal, that means it's therapeutic and something's trying to get out into light. Again, on the third album, Doors and Windows, there's a story called Silent Killer. There's a silent killer in almost every single home that we have out there. I can't give away what it is because I'm not giving away the story, but it's somewhat speaking to what we're talking about.